Well, let me take you back a bit.
Yes.
How much will the drop in crude oil prices affect the economy?
Well,
because we have been told that some people have said it's not a big issue.
Well, it's luckily for us, I think the saving grace is that, and I think that's why I say you always have to look at the right side. We spent $6 billion on subsidies for the fuel. So basically we're making significant savings on that because we're no longer spending that $6 billion on. So that's a clear line for savings that a lot of people are not talking about. So right now, oil revenues is only about 53% of the revenues. So you are losing more or less 25% of your budget. So you're losing 50% of that 50%. If you see what I'm saying, because oil only accounts for 50% of the revenues.
Yeah.
So that is the part that is going we're going to lose out on. But I'll tend to take a different position because we have to understand that how we manage our personal finances. If you had a 50% drop in your revenues or your salaries or whatever, you definitely have to begin to make an adjustment, or you now ask yourself, what investments have I made over the years, and how do you save or back up for a rainy day? And therein lies the problem in Nigeria. There's an elephant in the room, and I think everybody knows in Nigeria that what we need to do is that the government is too big. But the question is that who is going to bail the cat? Who is going to start restructuring the government, shutting down the parastatals?
That is it.
Steve Oronsoye did a report on the consolidation. The question is that...
it's in limbo.
Because who is going to bail the cat? The National Assembly, as you've seen, are they going to cut their $150 billion? The National Assembly, those group of people allocated close to about between 150 and 200 billion a year. Now, are they going to let go of any of that? Are they going to say, okay, well, because the oil has dropped by 50%, are we going to maybe take a pay cut of maybe 20%, even as a symbolic? So these are the sort of issues you see. So it's not so, for me, we shouldn't, let's call a spade a spade. There's a big elephant in the room, but nobody seems to want to know that basically the bottom line is there. So whatever political spin you put around it, then that's the issue. In 2008, just before the dawn of the financial crisis, our excess crude account was $20 billion. It was, I don't know how it got to $20 billion, but there was a lot of acrimony. But the $20 billion was what saw us through the last financial crisis. Now, again, it comes to bipartisanship. The excess crude account as of today is maybe less than $4 billion. And we have a 50% drop in oil revenues. So even if your revenues are dropping, this is the time you go back on your... And we make a big mistake. People think about the central bank reserves as the reserves that you go to when things are tough. No, that's the monetary reserves. The key reserves we have to ask ourselves are the fiscal reserves that will fund the fiscal deficit. We don't have that. It's now down to $4 billion. They set up the Sovereign Wealth Fund. That has been starved of funds. The stabilization fund of the Sovereign Wealth Fund that is supposed to stabilize the economy is only funded to $200 million. Now, the whole issue of let's build up the excess crude, the governors, everybody, all the governors, they're bipartisan. You see, I always like to tell Nigerians we always like to know when people are in agreement, in bipartisanship, we share all this money. Mr. President, we want to share this money. We're not keeping anything. It's our money. We're going to go to court. It's not yours. They share all the money. It goes. They don't fund the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And now that we have a problem, you cannot invest. Saudi Arabia told you very simply, we don't care about the oil drop. If oil gets to $40 a barrel, Nigeria starts to lose money. For the Arabs, their cost of production, oil has to hit $14 a barrel before they begin to lose.
Feel it.
So the Saudis have said, you know what, we're not interested anymore. We're not supporting anybody else in OPEC. We are going to take our market share, and we're ready to drive this oil price to $14 and even take a loss. You know why? because our fiscal reserves and our investments in our sovereign wealth funds are in worth of trillions. Same thing with the United Arab Emirates. We all go to Dubai. We don't understand what the United Arab Emirates are doing. Emirates Airline turns over $25 billion a year. Just the airline alone, now. So you can imagine what their hotels are doing. So they don't need the oil anymore. Their sovereign wealth fund is worth $1 trillion.
And we're giving them this money
exactly.
to go
you earn your income, you go spend it in Dubai, because so that they know that that's how they're shoring up the economy. So all those Arab countries have sovereign wealth funds in excess of $500 billion. So they can sit back and say, okay, we'll sell oil at $20.
Is it that the governors did not understand the impact the sovereign wealth fund will have on the economy?
You have to ask them that, because I tend not to go into political. It's a political economy. I will tell you as it is and tell you what happened. So the sovereign wealth fund was created, it was passed into law, and then now excess crude, part of the excess crude, take it, put some in the sovereign wealth fund, put it there. 20 billion, there's the same people who get this money anyway. The 20 billion that was stashed then, it was all shared through the governors, but it was done gradually. So during this period, they were able to ride that whole period. So now, we don't know what's going to happen because it's only 4 billion. So now everybody's talking about IGR, and I think it's good for Nigeria, actually, to be honest with you. I think it's a positive time for us. I think there are challenges, but yes, within these challenges, there are opportunities. We're going to move into self-reliance, and everybody's going to look inwards, and we're going to become more creative.
I was talking to a professor of economics last week, and he was saying that he actually wishes that the crude oil price would crash to $30 so that we can start doing what we have been mouthing for several years, that we have to move away from that crude oil being the life support of our economy.
I think we should put this in context, in the sense that Rotimi Amechi, as the chairman of Governors Forum, or whatever it is, went to court, to the federal government to court. I don't know whether this matter is taken out of court. Went to court to challenge. He says it's against the law, the sharing, that's this operation accounts, whatever, that you should take any excess money that comes to this account and put it elsewhere. Actually went to court. Part of the problems, Jonathan has with Rotimi Amechi, it's part from, comes from this. And so the issue, why we've not had any buffers, so fiscal buffers, the excess crude account, the sovereign wealth fund, and so on and so forth, is because the lower tier of government, they weren't agreeable to it. And so you are suspicious, the federal government is going to abuse the thing and so on and so on. You put checks and balances in place, you do that. Now let me also talk about the oil business. I think the oil business, yes, OPEC, non-OPEC producers. I'm a bit amazed and surprised that at this point in time, we don't have an institutional arrangement whereby OPEC and non-OPEC producers come together and collaborate. Because what's happening is that OPEC is saying, look, we're not going to lose our market share, like he did say. So they say, look, we're going to go for the shares because we have this strategically. We have these reserves. And we are seeing shale oil coming, we are seeing coming from Canada, tar sand, and so on, and we're going to make this, economic for them to produce. And so you have this fight. But I think that that's a joint common interest. I said to myself, today, we are privileged. We have the president, Desani, Alison Madeke, of OPEC today. That maybe they listen to this program. Why can't they, after so many years, OPEC was established in 1960. Up to this point in time, we don't have an arrangement whereby the dominant non-OPEC producers, the Russian economy, and so will come together and say, look, we have a common interest. Although we know that what's happened lately was, again, America trying to get back at Russia. And Russia going to Ukraine and so on and so forth. Yeah, okay, so we know you are dependent on, they're going to punish you. Okay, so it's all part of it. Okay, so what's that?
But let me just also add to that in the sense that we have to also understand that charity begins at home. And we have to develop our own homegrown solutions to a lot of this. Commodity prices all over the world are volatile. Yeah. And the Americans used to be our largest buyer of crude oil. And this year, they don't buy any oil from Nigeria anymore. And I think that should also make us sit up. Singapore is a tiny island nation that doesn't produce any oil. Singapore has more refining capacity than Nigeria. So I think charity must begin at home, and I think we need to tell ourselves the home truth. We have very well-educated people in this country, in numbers, and I think everybody knows what they need to do.
Okay. Dr. Chizia,
Yes.
we're out of time, so in closing here, what would the diversification want to do? Do we have the parameters to diversify?
I think the economy, like I said earlier on, is diversified. So that we are, we have to say it's still work in progress.
To reap the fruits of diversification.
Yeah, okay, I think reaping the fruits. I think that we need to try and stay the course. We have to try and stay the course, and that's why February 14th, 2015 is very important. Because if you ask me, I think that if we really need to stay the course, obviously we all know what should happen.
And I think in closing, what I'm just going to say is that we're at crossroads, but I think I see a lot of opportunities. I'm very optimistic about the development of this country. Our financial markets have proven that they can attract close to over excess of $20 billion in foreign capital. We're integrated with the global markets. We just need to get our act together and make sure that we put in the enabling environments to ensure that more of these funds flow through. But again, I think what is important for me is that the issue of inclusive growth. The whole joke came up when you talk about infrastructure deficits. You want to develop road infrastructure. You want to develop the various infrastructure that we need. And it's not a joke that somebody came up with the term stomach. What about stomach infrastructure? And I think that that is the critical thing that we need to look at now. How we look at a lot of all this economic growth and we make this growth more inclusive, and we make quality growth that will create employment and have our resources benefit the people of Nigeria.
Use the local term.
Exactly.
Exactly. Thank you so much. We've been looking at the Nigerian economy vis-a-vis the falling prices in crude oil, the politics that is going on, and we've had two economists. Tilewa Adebajo, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dr. Boniface Chizia, financial consultant.
Thank you very much for having me.
Sunrise will take a moment, and we will be back. Please.
Sometimes